Welcome back to TPS. The NFL celebrated its milestone 100th season in 2019 with the Chiefs defeating the 49ers in Super Bowl 54. The league went through great lengths to celebrate its first century, including the top 100 all-time team. Well, we're going to open up the debate lines even more by selecting the number one best player from every decade, from the 1920s to the 2010s. At TPS, we post videos every single day, so don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe. Then click the notification bell to be notified when we post a new video. 1920s, John Patti Driscoll. Driscoll was the pure package. Driscoll played and coached the Chicago Cardinals from 1920 to 22. He continued only to play for them in 24 and 25. He then played with the Chicago Bears from 26 to 29. Driscoll played quarterback, running back, and kicker. He led the Cardinals to the 1925 NFL Championship and earned 6 first-team All-Pro and 2 second-team All-Pro selections in the 1920s. Unsurprisingly, he was named to the All-Decade team. Driscoll's versatility as a coach/player and the fact that he played the entire decade earned him our pick here. 1930s, Don Hudson. If football fans, historians, and analysts can avoid recency bias, then most of us can agree that this was a top 10 all-time player. Hudson had a huge impact on the growing game of football. Hudson spent his entire career with the Green Bay Packers, which spanned from 1935 to 45. Like Driscoll, Hudson excelled in more than one position, as a wide receiver and as a defensive back. Hudson led the NFL in receptions every year from 1941 to 45, and in receiving yards 4 times during the 40s decade. He also led the league in receiving touchdowns 5 times. Hudson also led the NFL with 6 interceptions during the 1940 season. He had 34 his career, but his greatest accomplishment of the decade was leading the Packers to the 1944 NFL Championship. Did anyone single-handedly dominate an entire decade as much as Hudson? This guy unquestionably belongs on the NFL's Mount Rushmore. For receivers, the Packers, the 40s, and perhaps the entire NFL. 1940, Sammy Baugh. The Redskins legend was the ultimate definition of versatile. Not only was he the league's best quarterback in the 40s, but he also shined as a defensive back and punter. Sammy led the Redskins to an NFL championship in 42. He also did so in 37 as well, but we're focusing on the 40s. In 1943, he led the league in defensive interceptions with 11. Later, he led the NFL in passing yards during the 47 and 48 seasons, and in passing touchdowns twice. Baugh also hit over 1,400 total punting yards in 8 straight seasons from 1940 to 47. And to top it out, the Hall of Famer earned 6 first-team All-Pro selections in the 40s. There shouldn't be a debate. Nobody else started in 3 different positions like Baugh did during the 40s. 1950s, Otto Graham. Unitas Brown and Dick Night Train Lane earned consideration here, but Unitas and Brown didn't come along until 56 and 57 respectively. Lane was very close to earning the nod, but we ultimately had to settle on Graham, even though he didn't play the entire decade. Graham and the Browns won 4 straight AAFC championships before joining the NFL in 1950. The move to a new league didn't slow down this historic football dynasty in the slightest. Graham and company picked up where they left off. He led them to a league championship in their first NFL season. That was only the start of their NFL dynasty. The best quarterback of his era, Graham captured 3 MVP awards, and the Browns also reached 6 straight championship games from 1950 to 55, winning 3 of them. That's right, the Browns played in the championship game in each of the Browns' 6 NFL seasons. He was also a 5-time Pro Bowler and 4-time first-team All-Pro, led the league in passing yards twice. Graham retired after Cleveland's 1955 championship season. He didn't play the final 4 years of the decade, but still, nobody in that era completely dominated the game of football like he did. 1960s, Jim Brown. This one came down to Brown, Johnny Unitas, and Dick Butkus. The Cleveland Browns legend only played 6 seasons in a decade, retiring after the 65 campaign. But Brown is quite possibly one of the best players to ever play the game. In 2010, NFL Network placed him as the 2nd greatest player of all time, behind only Jerry Rice, of course. A decade later, it's still impossible to drop Brown outside of the top 4. Brown spent his entire career with the Browns, which spanned from 57 to 65. He was a ferocious runner that took over games constantly in a not-so-pass-happy era that was dominated by defense. Brown led the NFL in rushing yards 5 times during the decade in 60, 61, 63, 64, and 65. He earned Pro Bowl selections in every year of his career, and 5 of his 8 first-team All-Pro selections came in the 60s. Brown led his team to an NFL championship in '64. That would be Cleveland's final sports championship for 52 years. Brown retired after a historic '65 season, where he won the MVP award with 1,544 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns. He walked away as the all-time rushing yards leader, a record that was later smashed by Walter Payton. 1970s Mean Joe Greene. This was perhaps the toughest decision. You could take a handful of players from the '70s Steelers. You could make a case for Roger Staubach, too. So when all was said and done, we settled on the cornerstone player of the Steelers dynasty. Just look at Mean Joe Greene's team accomplishments, individual accolades, and the way he took over games on his own, and it's easy to see why he was our choice. Greene won the 1972 and '74 Defensive Player of the Year awards, making him the only player to win that honor twice in a decade. Teammates Mel Blount and Jack Lambert each won it once. The hulking 6'4", 275-pound defensive tackle guided the Steelers to 4 Super Bowl championships, becoming the first dynasty in the Lombardi Trophy era. Greene was also a 5-time first-team All-Pro and a 3-time second-team All-Pro. That's right, 8 All-Pro and 9 Pro Bowl selections, all in one decade. Not to mention he was named to the '70s All-Decade team plus the NFL 75th and 100th anniversary all-time teams. And hey, he only started in the most iconic Super Bowl commercial of all time. 1980s Joe Montana. It was a difficult decision, but we went with Montana for a variety of reasons. It's always hard to debate about choosing between an all-time great offensive player and a legendary defensive player. But in my opinion, Montana changed the game of football more by revolutionizing the quarterback position. Montana and the 49ers won a cool 4 Super Bowl championships during the '81, '84, '88, and '89 seasons, becoming the next great dynasty after the '70s Pittsburgh Steelers. Montana was named Super Bowl MVP on 3 occasions. On top of that, Joe Cool won the '89 MVP and Offensive Player of the Year awards while leading the league in passing yards twice. He earned 6 Pro Bowl, 2 first-team All-Pro, and 3 second-team All-Pro selections in the '80s. 1990s, Jerry Rice. Brett Favre, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, and Deion Sanders, and we actually went with, of course, our Jerry Rice, the biggest challenger to Tom Brady for the title of NFL's greatest player of all time. With the Joe Montana era winding down, Rice quickly went to work in keeping the dynasty run going with Steve Young. He held the 49ers together during years of drama and tension. He had 8 total 1,000-yard seasons in the '90s, and Rice recorded double-digit touchdowns every year from 1990 to '95. During the '90s, Rice led the NFL in receptions twice, in receiving TDs 3 times, and receiving yards 4 times. Rice was also named the 1993 Offensive Player of the Year and easily earned a selection to the 1990s All-Decade team. Rice and Young led the 49ers to a Super Bowl 29 championship, proving they didn't need Montana to win the big one. Rice and San Francisco also reached a whopping 5 NFC championship games in a decade. Anybody object to our selection here? Didn't think so. The 90s easily belonged to the greatest receiver of all time. 2000s Peyton Manning. Yeah, we know Brady and the Patriots captured 3 Super Bowls in the 2000s, but it's important to remember that he was more of a game manager during the early stages of the Pats dynasty. They ran a rush-heavy offense with a star-studded defense and the most clutch kicker ever in Adam Vinatieri. Aside from Brady, absolutely nobody can challenge our pick for the top player of the 2000s. Team accomplishments aside, nobody was more consistent and dominant than the Indianapolis Colts quarterback Peyton Manning, and he made the postseason all but 1 year from 2000 to 2009, only missing out in 2001. They won at least 12 games every year from 2003 to 9. Manning won his first MVP award in 2003, leading the Colts to the AFC Championship game where they fell to the Patriots. He followed it up with the second MVP award in 2004, setting the single-season record for touchdown passes with 49. The Colts sported the best record in the NFL during the 2005 season, but they lost to the eventual Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC divisional round. 1 year later, however, Manning finally broke through and led the Colts to a Super Bowl 43 championship. He also won MVP honors for that game after picking apart the Chicago Bears' stingy defense. Manning won back-to-back NFL MVP awards again in the 2008 and 9 seasons, led the Colts to Super Bowl 44 in the latter year, where they fell to Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. Recap: 4 MVPs, 1 Offensive Player of the Year award, 2 AFC championships, and 1 Super Bowl and 5 first-team All-Pro selections. Nobody was better in the 2000s than Sheriff Manning. 2010's Tom Brady. This one really isn't up for debate. You could argue that Aaron Rodgers was the top player of the decade from 2010 to 14. Drew Brees could have been on here if his teams didn't consistently let him down in the playoffs too. But the second half of the 2010s belonged to Brady. For starters, he won the 2010 and 2017 league MVP awards. His New England Patriots won the AFC division every single year in the 2010s. They also won no fewer than 11 games in any season. Now, the real good stuff, Brady asserted himself as the consensus GOAT after leading New England to 3 more Super Bowl championships in a 5-year span from 2014 to 18. This included his legendary fourth-quarter comeback against the Seattle Seahawks, Legion of Boom in Super Bowl 49, and a historic 25-point comeback against the Atlanta Falcons in Super Bowl 51. Brady was also named the MVP of both those Super Bowls. Not to mention that the Patriots played in 8 straight AFC Championship games and a total of 5 Super Bowls throughout the decade. Think about that. Brady was in half the Super Bowls for the 2010s. And by the time the decade ended, only Drew Brees set atop Brady in career passing yards and passing touchdowns. 2020's Patrick Mahomes? It's obviously way too early to predict this one, but we're going to do it anyway. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Aaron Donald, Nick Bosa, and Deshaun Watson all have compelling cases. But how do you go against the new face of the NFL? It's just not possible. Mahomes is coming off of his first Super Bowl victory with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you have to figure that there will be many more to come. It's not even just a Lombardi Trophy and a Super Bowl MVP. This guy won the league MVP award after throwing 50 touchdown passes in his first year as a starter. 2 AFC championships in 2 seasons, not a bad start to his career at all. Mahomes already looks like the most complete, all-around skilled quarterback ever. With Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce at his side, how can you bet against Mahomes for the long run? A lot can change over the next decade, but if we had to bet the house on who we believe will be the most dominant player of this decade, we'd give the nod to Mahomes in a heartbeat. What changes would you make to our list? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by hitting that subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.